All right, multiplying binomials. This is essentially using the distributive property, but on steroids. We are going to double up on the distributive property in this problem. So this is a binomial here because it has 1, 2 terms. This is a binomial here because it has 1, 2 terms. And we know we're multiplying because there's no addition or subtraction or anything else between the parentheses. So when there's nothing between two parentheses, you are multiplying always. So the first thing that we're distributing is the x. So we are basically multiplying x with this x and x with this 5. The reason we do not multiply the x with the 2 is because they're already in the same parentheses. We only distribute it to the stuff in the other parentheses. After we do that, we're going to multiply or distribute this -2. The negative has to go with it. And we're going to distribute it to the x and to the 5. So let's see what that looks like. So multiply x times x first. Then we're going to carry down this negative, and we're going to multiply the x times the 5. Now we are going to multiply this -2 times this x. We're technically adding these pieces together, so I'll put a plus sign there. -2 times x comes next. And then bring down this minus and then do -2 times 5. Now, x times x we learned is x squared. Minus x times 5, well, we just write that 5x. It always looks nicer to write the number first than the letter second. Okay. We are going to add -2 times x, which is just -2x. And we are going to subtract -2 times 5, which is -10. Now we have two like terms. We have -5x and we have -2x, and we're adding those together. So what we get from those two terms is -7x. The x squared out front has no like terms, so we just bring it down without changing it. And minus the negative we learned is the same thing as adding, so we change it to an adding sign and we rewrite the 10. And our final answer is x squared minus 7x plus 10. Now, in the second example, it's much the same. I'm not going to write out all these steps this time. I'm going to start taking a few shortcuts, which you're allowed to do on the quiz. So the first thing I'm going to distribute is this 2x. I'm going to multiply it with the x and with the -5. So 2x times x is 2x squared. Now 2x times -5, 2 times -5 is -10, and there was an x there, so we have to include the x still. We're done distributing the 2x now, and we move on to distribute the +1. So +1 gets multiplied with x, and +1 gets multiplied with -5. 1 times x is just x. Again, we don't like blanks, so since it was positive, we'll put a plus sign there. And then 1 times -5 is -5. We are almost done. We just have to combine our like terms, and we do have two like terms. We have -10x, and we have plus x, which is the same as plus 1x. So when we combine those, -10 plus 1 is -9, and these were x, so it's still in the x family. The 2x squared did not get combined, so it stays the same, and the -5 stays the same on the end. So our final answer is 2x squared minus 9x minus 5. Now you will see a problem that at first doesn't even look like multiplying binomials. On the quiz, you'll have a problem like this. This says x minus 2 quantity squared. That means this whole subtraction problem is being squared. Now, if you remember what squared means multiply that thing by itself twice. So what this squared is saying is it's saying multiply x minus 2 times itself twice, which means we have x minus 2 times itself, x minus 2. And when we write it that way, that's when we see that this is, in fact, a multiplying binomials problem. So we distribute the x first. X with the x with the minus 2. X times x is x squared. X times minus 2 is negative 2x. We're done distributing the x. And we move on and we distribute the minus 2 with the x and with this minus 2. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. We will be done again as soon as we combine our like terms. So you're seeing a pattern here. We usually have to end by combining two like terms. So negative 2x minus 2x is negative 4x. Carry down my x squared from the front, carry down my plus 4 from the end, and we have our answer, x squared minus 4x plus 4. And that gives you a good sample of what you will see on the multiplying binomials quiz.